Where is home? And how do we find it? That search can take people on tremendous global journeys.
We're all travelers in this life. And we shape in our soul by experiences. There's a mystical side to migration.
The history of migration is not one people, one country, one culture, or one story.
I'm a migrant. I can connect with you. Other migrants are just like me. It gives me an understanding for other cultures. It puts a whole new dimension into my view of other people.
Tourism and travel have become an enormously important part of our lives. The opportunity to see the world and experience life in another culture is highly seductive. Colin and his partner took up the opportunity to do just that when they decided to say goodbye to their old life and move halfway around the world.
I'm Colin. I was born in Newcastle upon Tyne. They'd never understand where I'm from anyway. They always assume I'm Celtic. So I get Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and they're like, oh, you're from England. So you always have that side of things. And that would be my identity in the first interaction with people.
Was migration an available choice and an option for you?
It was very much a choice. I worked in banking for 24 years. We had an opportunity to explore the options of moving overseas. We loved travelling. And then we just decided that we had some money. We had the option to live anywhere in the world we wanted. That was our thought at the time. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for ourselves. We wanted to basically have an English-speaking country. So that sort of narrowed down the options fairly quickly to, in our mind, Canada, America, South Africa, New Zealand and Australia. We also wanted somewhere which had a reasonable climate. So, it very much left us fairly quickly to a choice between Australia, America, basically.
The rural coastlands of this peninsula have been and still are proving to be an attractive destination for European and UK migrants. Providing semi-suburban, semi-rural living, an hour-and-a-half commute from a metropolitan city.
It was just a case of then understanding what was the best way to get into those countries, because obviously we were going, because of our age, it was always going to be that we were going to buy our way into a country effectively and then become temporary residents. And it was a case of looking at the options and which was the least risk. We didn't want to lose our money, basically, so we decided to look at the option of buying a government bond rather than investing in a business.
What was the spark that said, I actually want to go live somewhere else and I need a country that's going to give me a new life in some way, yeah?
It sounds quite flippant, but just because you could, that was it. It was just something we could do. When I left Newcastle for the first time, I'd never even thought of leaving Newcastle just to go down to London. And it was just a case of somebody who I worked with got a job in Bristol. And I thought, I could do that. So I immediately started looking for jobs internally within the bank. And then I got this job in this place called Haywards Heath. Didn't have a clue where it was. And luckily we had an international section in the bank. And I had a look at the atlas and thought, it's near Gatwick Airport for travelling. It's near London, love London. That's why I did it. And it was just, I made that decision within the space of a few days. And then I applied for a job within 4 weeks and got it. And it was very much a case of that's our approach to moving overseas. You know, we can both talk to anybody, and we've made loads of great friends here already. So we didn't ever think that was an option. It was just to experience living in another country. Our migration agent set us down and said, right, if you're leaving, it's going to take 8 months for you to get this visa in his normal time frame. So we then had this fabulous trip in mind, right? What can we do to waste 9 months of our lives, basically? So, I mean, luckily, we didn't have to wait so long, and we ended up in here within 4 months.
In England, did they see it as a strange move? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People couldn't understand why you would want to leave London, because, you know, we had a place in London and we had a place in Haywards Heath. So, you know, we spent our lives living central London, and then down in the country when we wanted to relax and just chill. And London is just London, to me, it will always be my favourite city in the world. I absolutely adore it. It's fantastic. But life's an adventure. You have to grasp any opportunity, so that's what we did. Travelling actually breaks down those walls, because you have all these little experiences and they all build up to, you know, to make you as a person. But, you know, lots of people don't take that option, that butt-clenching moment.
So home in Newcastle is about history, is about friends and family.
Yeah.
But otherwise you don't feel it's your sense of being is there?
No, not at all. That shifted. That shifted to here, because I think you've got to. Well, for me, this is home. This is where I've got to make my life and do the best I can here, and make friends here. So other than that initial friends, family, you know, where I was born. Other than that, I don't have any desires to particularly go back. I'm not, you know, when I always enjoy going back, but it's not something which I particularly want to do. I see my banking life as project manager. I'm adaptable to change. That's what I always used to do. So that my mindset has always been adaptability to change. So, you know, I just sort of, I live my life, I live it the best way I can. I would adapt to situations. I mean, you know, I get frustrated that things don't happen easy here, but, you know, that's life.
The adventurer aspect of you is someone that wants to change, wants to be shifted and moved, immersed in something else so that it does change you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's definitely right. I mean, change is an important factor. It builds you as a person. And I always think, going back to my early days in Newcastle, I was travelling. I did the usual thing which everybody in Newcastle did. You go to the Mediterranean for your holidays. I got very bored very quickly with that, and just, you know, I wanted something different. Lying on a beach, sitting in the sun is not for me. A lot of people go through their life doing that, but I just think it's individual challenges which build you as a person. You could either ignore that option. You can continue. I could have continued to lie on the beach and, you know, sunbathed and had Newcastle in the sun, basically. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to explore. There's a bigger world out there. What's out there? And then that's when I just started traveling to the US first of all, and then it's sort of, you expand. You start off in Florida, which is, you know, the Sunshine State, very warm, and then you sort of start thinking, well, what else is out there? You start exploring over to California. Opens up a whole new world there. You've got a huge amount of different cultures. You've got all this different restaurants and stuff. I always remember the first time going into a high-class restaurant, you know, and it's almost like that butt-clenching moment when you just think, can I go in here? Am I worthy? And I think traveling actually breaks down those walls, because you have all these little experiences and they all build up to, you know, to make you as a person. But, you know, lots of people don't take that option. They don't, that butt-clenching moment, they won't go into that restaurant. And it just builds you. Once you manage to just walk in that door.
That probably came from your Tyneside origins, wouldn't it? I think there's that certain sense of we're regional, we don't cross borders. Talk about that. And London these days would be a fairly multicultural, kind of diverse community, yes?
Yes, very much so. We lived in Tower Hamlets, which is the most culturally diverse borough in London. So,
did that form part of your desire to go and be in another part of the world?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. It was just purely a case of let's do it. And it was just a case of, we live in another country. It's a new experience for us. We thought something which was always in our minds that we'd wanted to do. We didn't have the chance to do it, unfortunately, through my work because of Walter's commitments in the UK.
And do you find where you are now is as multicultural as where you came from?
Not so much down in this part of the woods. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit not quite regional, but I don't think it's so multicultural in this part. I think in the city it definitely is. There's definitely a whole host of cultures in there, and it seems to be growing. And I think you need that different cultures in any major city just to help it grow and diversify even more. And I think somewhere like Australia, it leaves, you need lots of new ideas to grow. And I think, any country in the world needs that. But yeah, I think definitely it's very diverse now here. One of the weird things I just saw recently, which had never even crossed my mind, because you see a map of the world and you always see the UK in the centre of it. And then I was in a shop recently and I was like, Australia was in the centre of it. And I'm thinking, that's not right. What's going on here? So I definitely think it's a bit of... London definitely feels as though they're the centre of the universe. And I suppose New York does. So, the centre of the universe is probably in the middle of the two. So I definitely think that. A lot of British people think like that. And I think that's part of the problem when a lot of people migrate. You lose that element, I think, particularly if you're over in the Antipodes, because you're it's a lot more remote and you don't have access to the wide range of things that you would have in the UK. The remoteness, I think, is a big problem for people who are used to living in the UK. You are in the centre of things. Everything is easy. I mean, there's still lots of Geordies who go across the world. They are a proud race, and there's lots of similar. I mean, the Scots have just gone through recently the vote to become independent. They didn't ultimately do it, but you've always going to have people who break the mold. I suppose again it's all down to mentality. The people who are successful will be the people who adapt to change. The people who are forced out of their country for one reason or another, they will still... I mean, we had lots of stories in the Northeast, because I was working in business banking there. So you have lots of stories of particularly Iranians who were forced out of the country and left with nothing. But it's their sheer hard work and will to win and will to succeed which makes them successful. But for me personally, there is a trauma in their life to start off with, and mine never. I didn't have that. I've been very fortunate. Not everybody has the position where they can just decide to stop working. I had 24 years, very successful years in the bank, which I was delighted to walk away from. And that's given me other opportunities here. Art has been a major interest for me, and it's enabled me to sort of focus on something which ordinarily I wouldn't have been able to focus my sights on, because one, if I was in the UK, the salaries for a lot of people in art space isn't particularly good enough. I was fortunate enough to have a really good salary in the bank, and I had profit shares and share options that enabled me to do what I wanted to do, and it's a very fortunate position to be in. And sometimes because of that, you don't really appreciate that other people have gone through traumas and other things like that to get to where they've got to be. Mine's a completely different story.
Yours is a conscious and a willing exploration. But a lot of people that have successfully migrated that didn't think they would do it successfully.
Yeah, and that sort of environment of being challenged and developing is exactly the same as mine. Yes. It's just the starting point was different, but ultimately it's like everybody who's successful in life, there are going to be challenges thrown in front of you, and it's you decide whether to knock them down, or there's always opportunities. You just need to be able to pick the right one or ones. But being a migrant, that's basically what makes you successful. You have to be adaptable to change. As a migrant, you have to be influenced. If you're in a country for any length of time,
moving our lives from one culture to another provides an opportunity to change aspects of our lives and ourselves, when one future is exchanged for another in the journey of migration.
You think migration is also about teaching an individual to integrate, adapt and evolve?
For me, that's who I am. That's me personally. The fact that I'm migrating from one country to another, whether I'm in the UK, whether I'm in Australia, whether I'm in America, anyway, that those fundamentals are still there. That's me.
What about patriotism of people that are actually so aligned with their culture that they don't want to integrate, they don't want to adapt, they don't want to evolve?
Well, yeah, there's people who are like that, but this is me. I mean, in terms of, you're always going to have that type of person. It goes back to what I was saying before about, me as a person developing and using travel experiences to break down those doors. You're always going to have those people who are, don't want to do this, and you find those sort of people who move into any sort of migrancy, say, they're not going to succeed because they just don't want to change. You can't, in a lot of instances, you need to be adaptable. That's part of what being you may not think about it, but being a migrant, that's basically what makes you successful. You have to be adaptable to change. You may not actually think about it, but that's actually what you do. The actual movement from one country to another is an element of change straight away. And then, you're either integrated fully into the new community you move into. That's your adaptable change. If you don't, you'll hate it because of the culture, or you can't get any friends, being influenced by the surroundings. Because as a migrant, you have to be influenced. If you're in a country for any length of time, you would have to, whatever culture that country has, there's bound to be some elements of that have some impact on you.
How do you see your identity now? Has that shifted in the last 3 years?
In terms of being here, I still feel like a migrant because of the situation of our visa. We're temporary residents of this country. Every day I'm aware of that because of the situation I'm in, even if it's just because of the work situation more than anything else, because I can only work 20 hours a week. So that has a big impact on my sense of being. So until I become permanent, I will never feel, I'm here, I'm living, and I'm loving living here. But, in terms of, I am a migrant and I will always be one for as long as at least I'm a temporary resident, I think. Because, it's always there. And people, I work in a shop for a couple of days a week, and people pick up on the accent straight away. So, you're immediately in this conversation of, you're not from round here sort of scenario. And then you get into the situation of where you're from. And so, you're constantly being reminded of that. And then there's obviously the work scenario where I've always got to, if I'm looking for work, I'm always having that conversation around I'm 20 hours a week. It's always in my head. So whilst I'm living here, I still feel part of everything, but there's still that element of it is because I'm only temporary.
But do you think becoming a migrant also becomes part of your identity?
I suppose so. Yeah, it's a great icebreaker, I suppose, more than anything. Because one thing, and I'd never even thought of this as being a good side to migration, and it only because a situation happened in LaGuardia Airport, and I'd never even thought about it before. And if you had asked me, 2 months ago, I would have said, I've got a great life, the weather's nice and all this sort of stuff, but I couldn't actually probably come up with anything particularly. I was in this queue trying to board or check in for a flight. And there was this Japanese girl who was at the check-in desk, and she was reorganizing her case and, you know, doing all this sort of stuff. And there was this guy I was aware of behind me, and he was going absolutely ballistic, effing and blinding. He was really impatient. And at that point, I actually thought that was me 3 years ago. So that was one interesting element to which I would never have thought I'd ever slowed down and started to chill a little bit. But it was that experience brought home to me that it actually was, because I was standing there laughing at the situation, which, you know, 3 years ago I would have been that person effing and blinding. But here we are 3 years later, and I go to New York and I hate all the people around me. There's too many people, you know, so there's that element of it as well, which is just think, shit, you know, what are all these people doing? They're really annoying me, because you don't get that in Australia. I mean, you know, people think Melbourne's busy, but it's not New York busy. And it was just, that was weird as well, having that experience of having all these people around you all of a sudden, which I'm not used to. And, you know, and especially when you go to the States now, it's almost, and again, something which I'd never really thought of before, but you feel claustrophobic when you go into New York. You know, when you come here, it's wide spaces, it's fantastic. Being down here, you slow down. And I didn't realise I slowed down.
Is that because of the culture you're now in?
Yes.
Not the active migration, just...
No, just it's a culture that, yeah, it's the migration, being influenced by the surroundings, because as a migrant, you have to be influenced. If you're in a country for any length of time, you would have to, whatever culture that country has, there's bound to be some elements of that have some impact on you. If somebody, as I say, if somebody had said to me, as you know, the relaxed lifestyle in Australia is, you know, affecting you, I would have said no way, Jose. But it was just the fact that I had that experience in an airport.
Is being a migrant a transitory experience, or is it actually part of a solid identity? Because, you know, we've got this derogative or negative aspect of the term, but I'm not so sure that it is negative.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's negative at all.
If you're a migrant...
I mean, you've asked me the question. I've never really thought of my identity as a migrant. I'm aware that I am a migrant, and I'm aware of conversations which I have, which constantly, it's constantly there. I suppose I'd never even thought about it being as my identity, and it probably is. And there's, as you say, there's nothing wrong with being a migrant, especially, you know, somewhere like here, because, you know, it's full of us, basically. There's tons of migrants in this country, and there's always a sad story to tell. But fundamentally, you know, that globalization has brought lots of people, and that's helped lots of people migrate. And, you know, it helps them integrate into society, and it's helped the business. So, you know, you're always going to be faced with the other scenario where people, you know, the problem is the world's run by a few people, and we're just all little pawns in this whole little game, and migrants are one part of it, and they're one part who are, you know, they can enrich a society, but they're also an element of, you know, when times are hard, people not interested in you at the end of the day.
But do you think, say, over the last 15, 20 years that we have more of a sense of world culture rather than local culture?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a lot easier now to move around than it ever has been, and it's you know, you're obviously you're always going to get these elements of where there's some protectionism going on in various countries, but you know, ultimately being a migrant is a fantastic thing, because you're helping enrich a country.
In our next program and series of interviews, we meet individuals whose life circumstances compelled them to take the road less travelled and embark on their own journeys of migration. If you believe you have an interesting migration story to tell, contact us at this email address. We'd like to represent as many nationalities as possible in this program.